Now, the Inspector General of Intelligence, Setlhomamaru Dintwe, has filed court papers accusing the head of the State Security Agency, Arthur Fraser, of interfering with his functions and revoking his security clearance. Well, for more on this story, an organisation that no doubt is following it very closely is the NGO Right2know, and here's Murray Hunter with us. Murray, good afternoon to you. So, Arthur Fraser is saying that the investigation into him is malicious and taking place, and I quote, at the whim of political parties. How's your organisation reading that?
Well, I think that we need to look at it in the context of over years we've seen the State Security Agency becoming increasingly more powerful, Arthur Fraser as Director General becoming increasingly powerful, and actually dodging accountability at a number of different turns. For us, the Inspector General is put in place to investigate exactly the kinds of allegations that are put against Arthur Fraser, and he's taken extraordinary steps to shut down those investigations. If he truly believes that there's no merit to the allegations against him, surely he would want that investigation to continue and for his name to be cleared. Instead, he's taking unprecedented actions to undermine this watchdog. In
terms of public transparency, then, if that investigation by the Inspector General doesn't proceed, what do you see as the broader consequences?
Well, firstly, I think it's very clear that the Inspector General is going to fight to ensure that it does proceed. But we have a situation where Parliament has allowed the SSA to run amok. All of the allegations against Arthur Fraser and against the agency itself have piled up. We would want to see this investigation continuing, and I think that there would be significant political pressure on Parliament, on the Presidency, on the Minister of State Security to ensure that the IG is given the space that he needs to actually get to the bottom of these very...
But it's not the first time that political pressure has been applied to the State Security Agency, and with little impact.
I think what we see is something different now. We see a different context. The President that appointed Arthur Fraser, that gave him such extraordinary pressure, such extraordinary protection, is no longer President. The Inspector General that we have now, who's shown to the public that he's willing actually to fight for his independence and to fight for his mandate, is not the Inspector General that we've had in the past. And of course the public has really shown over the last years actually a growing dissatisfaction with the political climate of corruption and abuse of power, and has shown that it's willing to fight for these things. So I feel like the era of Arthur Fraser's and these sorts of abuses has actually closed down.
And this is the first time, as you rightly say, that we've had an Inspector General of Intelligence, often a position hitherto not even recognized or known by South Africans, that is for the first time trying to muscle up and to actually do their job properly.
Well, every watchdog has their day. For the Public Protector, we saw that under Thuli Madonsela, that office really showed that it had muscle and that it was willing to take on cases that the public needed it to take on, and to push boundaries to ensure that unaccountability would be challenged. I think Dr. Dintwe has really signaled to the public that he's willing to fight for us, and that is very encouraging.
Where does this leave the Minister of Intelligence, who has said that she is prepared to intervene in this dispute between the Inspector General and Fraser, but little seems to have come from that?
Well, we have, as you said, the Minister of State Security has made a statement, and there was not very much detail as to what steps she would be taking to actually resolve this dispute. Arthur Fraser is appointed by the President, not by the Minister. We would want to see Arthur Fraser suspended pending an investigation that may result in his dismissal. But it is a bit worrying that the Minister of State Security, who since she's taken office has said that she would be wanting to root out these kinds of abuses, but hitherto hasn't actually taken any material steps.
Isn't the most concerning thing the money that has been spent? The figure that's been bandied around is something like R1 billion essentially on an alternative intelligence capacity in this country.
Well, obviously the abuse of public funds is a concern. Unfortunately, the abuse of public funds is not something that is unique to any particular public agency. We see this across government. The real concern here is that the State Security Agency is of sufficient power that people who occupy that role and have shown that they're not subject to any kinds of safeguards, that they don't have any restraints on their conduct, have extraordinary power. They can spy on you. They can plant agents. They can tap your phones. They can plant, you know, it's really a very, very dangerous institution to be occupied by someone who doesn't appear to be restrained by the rules.
And given the scope and the reach, as you rightly point out, of this particular organization, one also suspects that either the entire edifice comes crumbling down, or, as it's done in the past, can simply reinvent itself in another guise.
Well, what we've said is we want to see an overhaul of not just who is running that show, but actually what the rules of the show are. And this is a long overdue task of Parliament, is actually to reform the laws that govern the State Security Agency and the rules and policies. And in fact, this is one aspect that we haven't been speaking about of Dr. Dintwe's application. He said the first step is he needs the court to restrain the person who's trying to stop him from doing the investigation. He said the second thing is that the court must make a ruling on certain aspects of the laws that govern him to increase his independence, to increase his hand to actually do the kinds of investigations that need to be done without future interference.
Is that within the purview of the courts, though, to do that?
Well, the courts can look at those governing laws. It's called the Intelligence Services Oversight Act, and say, actually, the Constitution says that this agency is sufficiently powerful that it needs independent oversight. And the kind of oversight we see right now isn't independent. They've done so before with the IPID Act. They've done so with other oversight laws. So we would want to see them do that in this case.
The world over, though, it's difficult to pin spooks down, though. That's the reality in this story, too.
Unfortunately, it's in the nature of secretive agencies that they tend towards abuse of power, which is exactly why this is a continual project of needing to beat back these kinds of encroachments and ensure a better oversight.
Murray Hunter from Right2know, thank you very much indeed.